you thought that the Formula 1 calendar already has enough street circuits, then you would be wrong. New proposals from the LDN Collective have put forward a new proposal for a London Grand Prix. Now this is a very early stage and they haven't actually been in contact with Formula 1, this is just a plan, but this race could be held as early as 2026. Now before you worry and start to think that Silverstone is getting scrapped off the calendar as its contract does end next year, this isn't the case. The London Grand Prix would be a street circuit and it would be in conjunction and on the calendar with Silverstone. Now this plan is to bring Formula 1 to the capital of England, and consultants have been working on a redevelopment of the East London Royal Docks. To include this Formula 1 street circuit, it would bring a huge amount of revenue to London. The track would consist of a 3.6 mile street circuit that has been linked to Montreal due to the water and the style, but I think this is more of a Baku style and sort of like Jeddah. It has the overall layout of Jeddah, but it has more of the 90-degree corners like Baku does. Now this plan has been put together from a bunch of environmental and urban planners, so I wouldn't worry too much about the street circuit. I don't think that the planners have had any contact with track designers, so this is probably just a proposal, but they have put forward a street style circuit with 22 corners dominated by long straights and chicanes. Now let's not talk about that triple chicane. I don't know who has put that in there, but I hope we don't see that if the race does come to London. Now the cars will run alongside the historic docks and past the city airport at an average speed of 127 miles per hour. Now the London Grand Prix is not a new concept. It has been rumoured for a long time with many different plans to pass the London Eye, Buckingham Palace, but this just really isn't viable for a capital city, and closing these busy streets and cramming crowds into its centuries old layout would just not be a viable solution for London. If you've ever been, you know how busy it is. Imagine trying to ship in the circus that is Formula 1 with the paddocks. This just isn't an option in the city centre. Now the East Docks are a better option as they already host races like the Formula E, and there is a street circuit here that they use already. So we know it is an option, you know it is viable, it's just expanding this to Formula 1, which is obviously huge, but this circuit would be slightly outside of the centre of London. Now apart from being a street circuit, this plan is extremely unique. They are including decking that can be removed to reveal the racetrack below, so it can be a temporary feature, kind of similar to what we have in Albert Park, as it is not a Formula 1 track all year round. Now this track is slightly different to anything we have on the current calendar, as they are looking to include floating modules to be installed on the water. Now these would be where the grandstands are, but throughout the year, obviously as they are looking to generate as much income as possible, these would be converted into things like restaurants, hotels, shops. Now this isn't a surprise to me. We know with the commercial rights owned by Liberty Media, they're just looking to grow Formula 1 as much as possible with the likes of the Miami Grand Prix, the Las Vegas Grand Prix. They're not afraid to have multiple races in the same country in order to bring in the maximum amount of revenue. Now we only have to look back to last year when they were considering taking Spa, one of the most favourite tracks on the calendar for a lot of Formula 1 fans, to realise that tracks like that just don't bring in the same amount of revenue as a track like the Las Vegas Grand Prix will in its first season. Now tickets for the Las Vegas Grand Prix are being sold for up to like £25,000 or something stupid like that, and it's extremely easy to sell these tickets to wealthy individuals that are going to be in Las Vegas. Selling £200 weekend pass tickets to Spa, that's just not as profitable. Now it's a shame that Formula 1 are going down a route that is solely focused on profits, but if you look at the new tracks recently, in the recent years we've had Baku, Miami, Jeddah, Las Vegas. These are all street circuits, and the reason that street circuits are favoured over the traditional tracks is just so expensive to build a purpose-built circuit, rather than closing some roads and putting up a temporary street circuit for a weekend every year in a city centre where millions of people already are and the travel links are already in place. Now as mentioned before, the Docklands area already hosts the Formula E Grand Prix, and this is a 1.4 mile circuit that runs through the Excel exhibition building into the parking area around it. Now, under these new F1 proposals, the pit lane would be built at the Excel alongside a waterfront and start-finish line, and it would have a clockwise direction. The cars would then head west, joining the public roads alongside the Thames cable car station before rounding a large hairpin and coming back to the Excel. Now, let's talk about that weird looking triple chicane. Now, I don't think this would be the final track design layout, so I wouldn't have anything to worry too much about, but I don't know why they've put this in. Obviously, they haven't consulted any track experts. Yeah, you don't need to know a lot about Formula 1 or racing to know that this section just would not work whatsoever. Max Farrell, CEO of the LDN Collective, has said that he knows that Formula 1 are interested in hosting a Grand Prix in London. Now, they have said that they can extend the promenade onto the water using floating platforms, and these could potentially be permanent or taken down. They are just looking to redevelop this whole area, so bringing this Grand Prix would be a huge income and publicity generator. Now, there is one aspect of the track that I think is quite cool, and that is the pit lane. Now, they propose to have a grandstand splitting between the start-finish line and the pit lane, which would allow fans to get up extremely close to the pits and would allow them to see their favourite teams working on the cars and get a closer view of those pit stops during the race. Now, I think this is pretty cool. I don't know about the safety in this image, obviously it's just a render, but I actually do quite like this concept. You have cars coming up a ramp. I mean, it's not unusual to have a pit lane separated from the track by quite a distance, and obviously with the lack of space they are struggling to put the pits next to the track. So I think this is quite a cool feature of this race. Now, what are your thoughts on this? Personally, I don't think that this would be the best thing for Formula 1. Although I live in the UK and I would love a London Grand Prix, I don't think this would benefit the calendar as much as Formula 1 think it would. I'm getting a little bit bored of the street circuit style races. It was cool when there was 3 or 4, but now it's getting closer to a third of total races, and it only looks like it's increasing. I'd much rather see races across the globe, as it is meant to be a global sport. Now, this is dominated by Europe, and it looks like America is the next place they are trying to conquer. But I'd like to see a few more races in Asia, and I'd like to see a race in Africa, as we don't have any races on that continent. If Formula 1 is pushing to be a worldwide global sport, I think they should definitely have at least a race on each continent. Now, there are Grade 1 listed circuits ready for racing, such as the Istanbul Park, Sepang International Circuit, and circuits like Mugello and the Algarve International Autodromo have been taken off the calendar in recent years. Now, even Kyalami, I think that would be a much better race weekend. Although it's not a Grade 1 circuit, I'm sure it wouldn't take much to get Formula 1 to race there. I would love to see a race around that track. So let me know what you think of this proposed London Grand Prix. If you're a fan of it, if you'd rather see Formula 1 racing at purpose-built circuits in the future, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one.